Welcome to the June Citizen Involvement Committee. We're sorry for the delay. We've had some issues trying to get things up and rolling. We will have Dennis do the roll call, and then he's already gone around, so instead of, just to save time, we're just going to have Dennis read off who's here, if that's okay.
Okay.
That way we'll get it on the record.
Well, one thing.
You read their name and they'll say here.
Okay. Okay, Dennis is here. This is June 4th. Dennis is here. Linda,
Here.
Amy,
Here.
Roy,
Here.
Vern,
Here.
James,
Here.
Karen,
Here.
Michael.
Here.
All right, thank you.
I'm here too.
Oh,
Excuse me.
Janice, we
Janice.
didn't notice
Oh.
Janice.
How, sorry. I didn't have a check mark there.
See, that's what we're doing.
Too efficient.
Totally over.
All right,
Excuse me.
and first up, we have John Lewis, welcome back, giving us an update on summer projects and general all about it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you asking. I've been to a few neighborhood meetings, so some of you are gonna be bored. So if you're, wanna play with your social media and electronic devices, I'll understand. But those of you that haven't heard this, I'm expecting your full attention, Vern. And I'm coming to Hillendale pretty soon, right? So.
Is there a test?
Is there a test? Well, this is always feels like a test to me because you guys ask tough questions. So maybe it is a test. I don't know. So yeah, just we did the teddy bear parade this year. We haven't done that ever as far as since I've been here anyway. And so we do most of the lane closures, but we actually were in the parade this year. So that was kind of fun. Yeah, sure. And we had our mayor and your granddaughter, right? So that was fun. So I just wanted to point out do all of you pay attention to your trail news articles?
Oh, yes.
Of course you do. Well, that's good because you're stewards of the city and good stewards of the city. But this brochure is already in there. I'll go through some of the projects in detail. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we've been doing this for a few years. We mailed them out originally, and then we decided that was a challenge because of all the postage associated with it. So we have gone ahead and upgraded with a nice color brochure, and it's pretty readable. It doesn't have a lot of information, but it tells you how to get to more information if you want it. So that's a good thing to have. I've heard people say, oh yeah, I've got it on my refrigerator. So I keep it on my wall, and I refer to it whenever I need to. I'll go through the utility projects first. The Beaver Creek Road Sewer Extension Project, it was in there. It was kind of towards the end of the season, but it's done. And we've now got a trunk sewer that heads not quite to the high school, but it connects the high school sewer line to it. So that'll be available for any future development out there. Right now, we're in the middle of the construction of the 15th Street Storm Sewer Project. That was a project that came up last year when we were doing the paving projects, and we realized we had some real problems with the storm drainage system down there. So right now the crew's near Main Street. They're about 20 feet deep. That picture right there represents that that manhole, or the first section of that manhole, and we're building a 30-inch. There's an existing smaller diameter stormwater pipe that picks up most of like High School Creek. So for those of you in the McLaughlin neighborhood that might know that area, that whole basin kind of comes and drains through this and then goes out to the river. So it was undersized based on our modeling, and so we're upgrading that, but it's quite deep at the intersection, and then as you know, 15th Street kind of ramps up. So down near the railroad tracks, it's much shallower there. So we're hoping to get out of the deep stuff pretty quick. High Street water line. This one's got me a little nervous. We've bid both projects, awarded both projects. There's a water line, and then we're going to follow that with a transportation project that would rebuild High Street. So I'll talk about the street work in the next slide. But water line replacement, we're finding whenever we do a project in the McLaughlin neighborhood, we pretty much have a water line or a sewer line or a storm line. In this case, we're going to do a little bit of everything. Even the gas line needs to be amended. So the thing that concerns me about it is just, we've got two different contractors plus the gas company. They're all saying, hey, we need a little more time here, and hey, we don't work well together, or they do work well together. I shouldn't say that. It's just a tight site. And so we know High Street's going to be a challenge. So I would just tell you right now that if you need to use High Street during the summertime, I would suggest you find Center Street or some other route, because it's going to be kind of a mess. And it really goes from South Second to Third. That's the section we're rebuilding. We're also doing waterline work in South Second Street and on Third. So just a lot of challenges down there.
Estimated
There's a lot of
start date?
bedrock in that area, so we'll be dealing with that as well.
Estimated start date for that?
June, middle of June. We'd like to get them in there sooner. We're going to talk to them about that. So we actually have a meeting this week to see if we can. But middle of June's not too far away, so. And then Hazelwood Drive, this is the last moratorium project, and that's become the most complicated project. If you're familiar with that, Coffee Creek, actually, if you live in Kenema, you know Coffee Creek really well. On the top end of the hill is, Coffee Creek is in the Hazelwood neighborhood, or it's along Hazelwood. It's the, which neighborhood is that?
South End?
South End, yeah. But it's the creek that goes, it's kind of originates in Chapin Park and comes down through there, and there's a sewer line that pretty much parallels most of that. And because of that creek and along the Hazelwood area, it goes behind the houses. So it was just going to be a challenge to try and rebuild that where it's at. So we're moving it out into the street, but the street in that area, the creek goes down here and the street's way up here. So it's probably 30 feet deep where we're going to be tunneling that project. So the tunneling combined with the work along the stream corridor is just a pretty big challenge. So we've been making due diligence. The consultant that we're working with has continued to ask for additional geotechnical information. And so we're doing our due diligence there. But in order to do that, I don't know if you remember, but we've gone through several public hearings on the moratorium. We got that extended through October 1st. We thought we could meet that deadline. Now I'm pretty confident we can't. So we're going to take that back to the City Commission and get another extension on it. The good news about that basin is that most of it's built out. So we're not really slowing down things if people want to do something to add a bathroom or add on to their home or build a new home. All right, so just these are kind of the ones that you're usually most interested in. The reconstruction projects, again, I'm going to refer to that Trail News for all the details of that, but we've awarded the contract for that. Schedule's supposed to start mid-July, and again, the High Street project is in that list of projects, and the idea is to rebuild really High Street from South Second in the intersection, so the entire intersection. There'll be new ADA ramps on all four corners there. We're gonna go up Second Street, one block to Center, and then from that intersection down to Third and through the intersection of Third. And there's several curb ramps that will need to be upgraded along there. We've actually been, we included some curb extension, the neighborhood. So James, you might want to take this back. The neighborhood has been pretty adamant about wanting some kind of traffic calming in the form of curb extensions along Center Street and High Street. Mm-hmm. We've heard more from folks on Center, but we're doing High Street, so we're trying to put in some features there that both help with bus stops and help with some traffic calming. And I think Christina committed that we could get that to the that idea and get some buy-in from the Historic Review Board. But there's other projects that are in that project there's other streets that are in that project. The big one that I'm remembering is Partlow, so it's coming through a couple of your neighborhoods as well. And then Matt Bullison and his in-house paving program, those, I don't exactly recall where all those were at, but they've been down on Main Street Extension, kind of doing some things down there. They're doing a lot of crack sealing right now, getting ready for the preventative maintenance work. And so they're busy group. The 15th Street paving, we're not going to do that in-house, but once the storm sewer work is done, the contractor that we had last year, we're asking him to come back, or he's waiting to come back to finish that project. So he'll be, it's actually the same contractor that's doing this next year's project. So it's S2, so they'll be doing that. And then most of you will remember the intersection at 12th and Washington, signal going in there. That's been a bit of a challenge because we've been waiting for PGE and some of the other utilities to get all their power lines out of the way. So that's kind of been an off and on process. They've got the foundations poured. Actually had an accident there that was a two-vehicle accident. Contractor wasn't on site, but one of the vehicles hit one of the new foundations. So imagine, those deep poles, those foundations on those are pretty deep. In this case, it happened to be one of the pedestrian button foundations, so it's not as deep. But still, once you fracture something like that, you got to pull it all out. So they're going to have to go back in there and remove that, and we're going to have to pay them for that. So but it's moving along. How's that? Malala Avenue and the Regional Flexible Funds Grant, if you remember, that was for funding from 2019 to 2021. But Metro, we're doing what they call a fund exchange with some funds that TriMet has, just to defederalize that funding so that it's a little easier for us to spend. We don't have to jump through as many hoops because it's what they call defederalized. So if it's a federalized project, there's lots of rules to how you progress through a project like that. Everything from how you hire your consultant to how you construct the job. So we're real happy about that. And Metro, we met with Metro. They're willing to let us move forward. We need an IGA with them, which we're working on, an intergovernmental agreement between the city and Metro. So we're working on that as we speak. And so we're going to get started on that project in 2018. That'll be the design work, getting all the right of way, those kind of things. We won't be turning any dirt until 2019. Then Myers Road, still well along in the design phase. We're working through right-of-way acquisition, and we've got the problem with the BPA power lines, and we're working through that issue as well. So we have a meeting scheduled later this month with BPA to find out what they're thinking, and we've been meeting with our attorney on right-of-way acquisition. So gone a little slower than I'd hope, but the good news is the community college and their project is moving forward for the new parking lot in the transit area. They're very interested in that, so their board's going to approve part of their part of their participation in the Myers Road project is going to come through in the form of a check for the city. So that's good news. Any questions so far? Okay. Keep moving on. So ODOT's also busy in Oregon City, or in the Oregon City area. So I haven't been out on the section of I-205 lately, but I think they're out there paving. At least that's what the noticing suggests. So between I-5 and Abernathy, they should be out there with paving machines, and I think it's all night work. So that's moving forward. Unless you're out there at night, you're probably not going to notice it. You might hear some noise from across the canyon if you're in the, up on the bluff there, but probably not much. So I did want to show a little video because this is kind of a neat thing that ODOT put together for us, and so Christina's going to try and.
Hold on.
Oh, you watched it, didn't you, Christina?
No, I didn't. Here we go.
So this is just a flyover video that I think is kind of cool. There's no sound associated with it, so I'll somewhat narrate it. And Christina, I might ask you to pause it from time to time,
Sure.
just because it goes kind of quick. So this is, if you know the project, it's 205, and it's the widening project from really 213 interchange. They're doing some work on that kind of northbound off-ramp onto 213. And so they're going to add a lane here, a through lane, and there'll be that auxiliary lane to get off, and then stop it right about there. They're doing seismic upgrades to several of the bridges, including the one we just went over, which is at Main Street Extension. So they're going to, I don't exactly know what that's going to look like in terms of upgrades, but they're intent is to do seismic upgrades to that. They're also going to seismically upgrade the Abernathy Bridge, but at the same time, they're going to get wider with that bridge. So they've got some pretty significant plans, and we're going to see some pretty big impacts, particularly to John Storm Park. They need more than what they can do within their right-of-way there. So I think they're moving forward with a vote of the public on using John Storm Park. And so that's going to be an important vote for us, I think, as it comes up, because I don't know what happens if they can't get approval to do that part of it. We might have trouble. That might be another problem with widening the 205 bridge. But you can hit play again, Christina. Pretty big plans for interchange improvements. Stop right there if you can. For Westland, this is a concept design, so this is pretty early on. I think Westland and the city of Oregon City are kind of concerned about how this would really work. There's a lot of grade transition and a lot of bedrock in that intersection. Definitely need something different than what's there today. Whether this is the right solution or not, we're not sure. But this is the one interchange that ODOT is looking pretty closely at doing a fair amount of work on. We're pushing them to also, we'd like to include some more work on 99E at that location. But both interchanges impact Oregon City. So we'll wait and see what comes on there. Oh, the other piece here is Broadway Street has a bridge over it today. It's not showing one there under this concept. And I think they've pretty much come to that conclusion. The other little piece that I forgot, hold on, Christina.
Sure.
Was the, so if you're coming from Oregon City, heading north on Highway 43, a lot of people use that on-ramp to get on 205. They're proposing that that would go away. And the reason for that is just there's a lot of problems with transitioning between that on-ramp and people trying to get off on 99E, so that would eliminate that merge movement. So,
That would have serious impacts on the people that use Willamette Drive as a bypass for the freeway too. Because a lot of people, if they take away that on-ramp, a lot of people would really be unhappy with that.
yeah, well, I think it's one of those scenarios where ODOT's focus is on moving 205 traffic, and they're trying to figure out a safe way to do that. And it's just, ODOT's really particular about having interchanges too close to one another, but just based on Highway 43 and Highway 99, there's no real options there. So I think they've got a good approach to that. It's just how you go about doing it. And that roundabout essentially puts them, so if I don't know if you can go back at all without messing this thing up. Stop. So the roundabout would essentially take those folks that would normally hop on that on-ramp, and you'd go around the roundabout and you'd just come right up the ramp.
Oh, so you actually go on to on the southbound side then?
Right, right.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. That would be nice then.
Yeah. Again, just some seismic upgrades. I'm trying to remember the symbology, and I've kind of forgotten it. I think they replaced that West A Street Bridge, so that's why the wrench is there. There's a lot of rock excavation that has to happen through that canyon there, so if you're familiar with it, it's bedrock through and through. They're pretty worried about that, or worried's probably the wrong word. They're calculating that into their construction expenses, and it's not cheap, put it that way. Okay. So the rest of this is just replacement of bridges. That bridge right there has got some reconfiguration needs to it. And, this goes all the way to Stafford, and the rest of it's just pretty much seismic upgrades to existing bridges or replacement. I think the Tualatin River Bridge actually gets replaced. So we can just kind of enjoy the drive here.
It's a nice day.
10th Street, they're really just doing seismic upgrades to that, so they don't need to replace that one. And same with this one, that symbol there suggests that that's just seismic upgrades. This one here, the wrench means it's got to be replaced. And then I think the next one is Yeah, the Tualatin River Bridge. So they don't do anything to the overpass, but the Tualatin River Bridge would be replaced. And same with Borland Road. Okay. So I don't know a lot of the details. We've been meeting, we're trying to meet with them pretty regularly just to figure out kind of impacts and, an understanding. But they've got a great website. There's lots of information on the ODOT website, which we're going to refer you to in just a minute here. But just know that's kind of going on. The slide has a photograph of the 99E Rockfall project, which started this week. I think they're out mobilizing. I haven't been on 99E today, but they may be out there kind of marking things up. They're actually going to do a lane closure similar to what we did when we put the water line in there. So if you experience that, it actually went pretty well, but it's still going to take 4 lanes down to 2 lanes. And it's going to stay that way for a while. So they did a lot of vegetation removal off the bluff, both in Kenema and in, I guess it would be the McLaughlin neighborhood, or I don't know what neighborhood that section of 99E is. It's either in the downtown or McLaughlin. But in this case, they're going to take the fencing that kind of lays against the bluff there, peel that back, knock off anything that's loose, or bolt rocks back into the bluff, and then stitch all that fencing back together. So it's going to take some time. I think it's underway. I'm forgetting the end date, but I want to say they're trying to get it done before the Clackamas County Fair. Yeah. One thing that you might not have noticed, but when we did the removal of the railroad spur in Main Street, there was a signal pole there at 6th that used to tell you, hey, stop here at 6th while the train comes, the rail cars come out onto Main Street from the mill site, right? Anybody remember that? You guys are looking like you're not remembering that very well. It's been several years since it happened, but the mill used to back rail cars across 99E on Main Street all the way to 6th. And there was a signal there that stopped you on Main Street. And so they finally got around to removing that, which is kind of a good deal because it wasn't needed. And then another project that ODOT's working on, this is more in 2019, but the lighting inside the tunnel, as well as some advanced warning signage that'll go on 99E, just kind of near our water pipe, will be added. So those 2 projects are being merged. The city's participating in some of that work. And because not the lighting so much, but the signage was a requirement for the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, just to give folks a heads up that, hey, there's congestion ahead, slow down. So both those projects are being combined, and right now it looks like they're going to do that work. I saw a schedule today that from March to June of 2019. The other little caveat to that is if you're coming up 99E and you want to try to take a shortcut onto Tumwater instead of coming up to the signal, you can make a pretty dangerous left turn right there. And ODOT has wanted to see that go away. It was part of the McLaughlin to Kenema Trail plan that be closed as well. So ODOT's taken advantage of that and this project, and they're going to at least do kind of a softer barrier, kind of like what we have down on 10th Street near Dutch Brothers, something like that, I think is what they got planned. There's just lots of information. Trip Check is really good. The nice thing about Trip Check is even us, we've got login rights to Trip Check. We can put our projects in there, and if there's a delay or a lane closure or a road closure, we can add that. So just keep in mind, if you don't use Trip Check, you probably, and you like to commute places, you might want to use Trip Check. It's getting pretty good. And then just some other information about different things that are going on around the region. There's a great map that shows all the ODOT projects, kind of like what we have, only on a much larger scale. I want to talk about this exciting news. The city for years has been working to redevelop on the Operations Center site, current site just down the street on Center Street, and made good progress with that. But what we heard in the news was that the General Distributors site had been acquired by Columbia Distributors. And so hearing that and wondering a little bit about what they were going to do with the property, we inquired what they might be thinking about that. And we learned that it was for sale. And so we made an offer and they accepted our offer. And so we're moving forward with the due diligence on this site. So it's right on First Street. It's just under 5 acres. It's I'll give you that. It's 4.79 acres. There's lots of warehouse space, and we're kind of looking at the condition. It's got some fuel tanks on it, large fuel tanks, a gas and diesel tanks. So we're wanting to do due diligence on that, make sure we don't have any leakage there, and just looking at everything from roof to wiring to all HVAC, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to wrap up here in the next couple of days, and we're scheduled to close on that mid-June. Or not close, we're scheduled to end our due diligence period, and then we have another 30 days to close. So pretty excited about that property. How we use it is still kind of a question. We're kind of looking at it. If you've ever been in that building, there's, like I said, there's a lot of warehouse space, but the office space is not really quite what we need. So we're looking at options there.
Like remodeling the existing,
Yeah, so
like office space, or no?
they've got, this is all pretty much warehouse, right? So I know you can't, if you turn around. So this area here was kind of phase 1 of that, and then they added this, and then they added this, and these little pieces came at different times. And at some point, they added these office buildings in here. And so imagine, what's decent office space. There's a little place where they used to sell to retail customers. But like the upstairs is unfinished. It's disconnected. There's some pieces that you have to go out into the warehouse to get back into the office spaces. So yeah, trying to figure out what we're going to do there, whether we're going to try to regroup that and redo that inside the existing structure, or whether
just
we
knock it down,
knock
put
it
something
down and
useful.
rebuild something new. Right. Right. So we're learning lots of things about the seismic stability of that building. And yeah, that combined with efficiencies and, be nice to have a structure. I guess the other thing I didn't mention, so we're talking about parks operations being in this building as well. So the space needs for office space goes up quite a bit because of that. But yeah, we're still trying to figure that out.
Okay.
We're mostly looking right now at just kind of what's the condition of the building. Is there anything that we need to ask the sellers for? It's kind of like when you do a home inspection, only on a much larger scale. So the upper yard, thinking about this presentation and thinking about, I've got one more presentation coming up with the chamber. And so this piece here is, there's been a lot of interest in what are we going to do with the upper yard, and I'm not a policy decision guy for sure. So that's really a decision that the commission is still, we haven't really even talked about it, but I've heard, hey, we don't want to think about this for at least another year. In terms of looking at our space needs, I'm pretty confident we still are going to need the upper yard, but that's debatable, and that's not necessarily my decision to make. So I think the city commission is wanting to focus on that at some point, but we're trying to get through this land purchase first. I will tell you that, we've been at this operations center development since 2009. Well, before that, really. I mean, we got an approved master plan in 2009. Since that time, we decided, based on both our needs and the neighborhood needs, that we were gonna relook at that 2009 plan and redo it, reopen it up and redo it. And in hindsight, I kind of wonder if that was not a mistake. We did that with good intentions, and we haven't necessarily felt the love on the backside of that from the McLaughlin neighborhood. So James, you're gonna have to plug your ears for a little bit here because I'm gonna complain a little bit. You know, we've been through, and I just think this is bad for the city. I don't know what folks who live in other neighborhoods think, but we've been through 2.5 years of legal battles on that. And I would say frivolous legal battles. We've won every one of them. And we predicted, and when we talked to the folks with the McLaughlin neighborhood that are pushing these legal battles, you know, they were given good information to say, you know, this just isn't, you're not gonna win this battle. It's cost us, it's cost you folks a lot of money. And when I think about the needs of this city, I think it's a shame, I really do. But I'm not a policy guy, I'll just say we've spent over $300,000 in legal bills on that facility, and unnecessarily, really unnecessarily. And so where does the city commission go with that? I don't know. If I'm a policy decisioner, I'm feeling a little hurt over that myself, but we'll see where they go. That's a future decision until we get through the decision on the existing center and really what our full space needs are and what, you know, what kind of use that would be good up there. We really want that free and clear of any encumbrance. So there's still one more appeal, I understand. There was just another appeal that was made on these buildings, the cannery building and so the picture on the upper left and the upper right, those two buildings came from Camp Adair, which is in just out of Corvallis. So it's got, you know, there's some military history at Camp Adair, but these buildings got, once they were determined that they weren't going to be needed there, got kind of distributed around anybody that would take them, and apparently Oregon City took them. So we've got those buildings, and the plan would be to tear them down. But the McLaughlin neighborhood, as I understand it, just filed another appeal on that decision, so we'll see where that goes. On to alternate mobility targets. Good news here, at least from my perspective, and I think Christina's perspective, we've got an approved alternate mobility target that we're now sending on to ODOT. And if you've been following that, there is a combination of allowing the way we measure congestion. It would allow for a little bit more congestion at that location, and at the same time still build some projects. Now, there's been a lot of debate about how big of projects we should build there. If you've been around the city for any length of time at all, you know at one point in time there was a grade separated interchange there. We're not recommending that. We're recommending a westbound right turn lane that would take traffic. So if you're heading into Oregon City from, say, the high school on Beaver Creek Road, and you're wanting to go northbound on Highway 213, right now you've got a yield right there, and it's not a free-flowing merge lane. So this project would allow that lane. It would need to be built, but a lane that would allow free-flowing turning there and an acceleration lane, so that vehicles on Beaver Creek wanting to head north on 213 would be able to stay in their lane, merge through that, accelerate with all the other through traffic that's on 213. So that solves a lot of the problems, especially in the AM peak when we got a lot of traffic coming into town. And then there's some safety improvements along between Beaver Creek Road and Maple Lane that we think need to happen, and there's also some sidewalk improvements that would have to happen. All of that kind of project list are projects that we've added to our transportation system plan. And so I'm going to talk about transportation STCs here in a minute, but we've added a lot of projects to our project list, and with those is all the costs associated with them. So we feel good about being able to build this project. I think the region is also kind of, whether it be the county or the state, they've been slow to come to the table with funding, but if we were pursuing grants, we think this one would be successful. So it's been sent on to ODOT, and their staff are obligated to take it to the Oregon Transportation Commission, and we're hoping to get approval through them. And despite all the other kind of land use appeals that we tend to see around here, this one did not get appealed, so we're beyond the appeal period and we're moving on. So good news. Just a short update on the City Commission goal number 1 includes a desire to get quiet zone designation through Oregon City. There's really 2 at-grade crossings that are of concern. There's 10th Street and there's on 11th Street, just near the county building and the TriMet Center there's a pedestrian crossing there. So both those would need upgrades in order to get quiet zone designation. So we're kind of arm wrestling a little bit and partnering, I guess, if you can do both at the same time with Union Pacific and with ODOT Rail on what exactly these solutions have to be. And, you know, obviously we want them safe, but at a cost that's affordable. So more to come on that, but just know we're still working on that. Just a couple of thoughts that you may be tracking. I went to the TriMet listening session that was at the Abernathy Center on May 29th. There wasn't anybody that I recognized in the room there, and it was lightly attended. But TriMet was there to kind of hear ideas about what their services might need to do to improve service in Oregon City. And it wasn't just Oregon City. Wes Lynn was there. I did see the Public Works Director from Wes Lynn. He was there. Really lightly attended. So I think there's still opportunity there is still opportunity to chime in. I didn't post the TriMet website, but it's pretty easy to find. So if you want to add comments to kind of their listening session, and you can do that. And then the other TriMet piece that's happened, and this is somewhat, I think, behind the ideas that we've got on High Street, but they've looked at the whole corridor from 99 up through Oregon City to the community college, looking for ways to enhance the speed, not the speed of the buses, but the travel times from one end to the other, doing it Portland area wide. So we talked to them about some needs in Oregon City, and one of them was, you know, just maybe improving the stops on some corridors, but maybe reducing the number of stops on corridors, adding facilities like covered bus stops, those kind of things, better lighting, that kind of thing. And then this has kind of died down, but it was pretty hot and heavy at the end of last week. Salem was under an order to for domestic drinking water to not necessarily drink the water. And it was due to an algae bloom that apparently was at Detroit Lake, and so they get their water out of the San Yam. So the only reason I brought it up was because there's confusion about whether or not there's other places with the same problem. We don't have that problem. We just posted something up today on our website. We get our water out of the Clackamas River, and they've been monitoring the reservoirs up in the Clackamas River Basin. PGE monitors those. No, there isn't the algae bloom problem up in that basin that they have in San Yam Basin. So just kind of wanted to make that clarification that we don't have that problem. We do see some problems with algae in the cove. We have for the last couple of years, but our drinking water source is upstream of that. And obviously the flow through the cove is not what it is in the Clackamas River. And then the other regional conversation that's kind of gearing up is just this idea of value pricing in the Portland area, but it's pretty centered on the Abernathy Bridge. So just know that ODOT is considering, ODOT and actually it's more of the legislature is considering the idea of tolling the Abernathy Bridge. And there's other places where they're considering, but the study seems to be looking pretty squarely as the best recommendation would be. I think what they were looking at was a demonstration tolling on a section of I-5 and then moving to Abernathy. So that's probably several years out, but it's still kind of an interesting conversation to be having. And it's really happening at the legislative level. Again, ODOT has a great website to be able to provide your input if you're interested. So feel free to check out that website. I think all you have to do is type in value pricing and you'll get there. So real quickly, I'm winding down here, I think. just wanted to let you know this, you may have seen the signs. We had a website up as well, but Clackamas County Fire District, they're rebuilding the Malala Avenue Fire Station. You've probably seen that at construction. There was an old ODOT signal out in front of that fire station, and it was built when, Malala Avenue was 213. And so it's been there for a long time. And when they came in and talked to us about redevelopment, one of their conditions was that they either replace that or they come up with a different solution. And they've come up with a different solution, which is to remove it. They've justified that they don't necessarily need that signal there. So we're happy with the fact that it's a piece of aged infrastructure that's really not in the best of condition, so it's gonna be coming out. It'll help a little bit with some of the, right now that signal pole sits right in the middle of the sidewalk, so there's not good ADA access through there. So we're supportive of the idea of them removing it, and they've supplied sufficient engineering analysis to establish that they don't need that. So just know that that signal, just bagged today, it's been covered up for several months now, and it won't be going back. I'm not gonna, staffing, we're full. At this point, Public Works has got all its open positions filled, so we're happy about that. And we're busy, folks are busy. The hard part has been dealing with some of the development review staff. That's a tough position, and we're happy to say that we've got good folks in there now, and we're gonna do our best to keep them. But that was the main point of that bullet. I guess the other point is we're also gearing up with our seasonal workers, and we use seasonal, we bring on about 10 seasonal workers a year. They do everything from catch basin cleaning to crack sealing to weed whacking and all those kinds of things. So we really get a lot out of those folks, so we're happy to have them. We're also working with everybody in the city, but our permit group, whether it be building permits, planning permits, or public works permits, they're coming online first. And we're going through training all of this week, and we're supposed to go on June 18th is live date, yeah. So that seems to be on track. So just know that if you come to get a permit, it should be better in the future. And then we had Public Works Week, which was great. We had an equipment rodeo, and we had what was considered the first Oregon State APWA Public Works Rodeo in Oregon City at the end of the Oregon Trail. We had, I think, 15 agencies from as far away as Crook County, Bend, Roseburg. They send up at least one employee. We had 27 participants, and Martin and the gang, they put on a really, the layouts, this is just one of them, but the layouts were all handed to the state, or all, the rules and the courses all came from the National American Public Works Association. So they're gonna do a national rodeo, and out of that, we picked 2 candidates that would go, and the Oregon chapter sending them to the national rodeo. So pretty cool deal. It was kind of fun. Learning experience. Nobody from Oregon City.
We didn't win?
Won. No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I was pretty disappointed in that, but guys tried hard. It was tough. It was tough skills. Just to pass along, Maple Lane, I think it's been reposted. I think it was 45 in Oregon City, and it's gone down to 40, so that's hopefully good news for some. Transportation SDCs, I mentioned that. The commission approved some transportation SDC increases that hit new residential a little harder than commercial gets hit pretty hard anyway, but I mean, the idea was to try and balance that out a little bit. We got a lot of residential development going on, not so much commercial. So what we were hearing was, hey, is there a way to kind of mitigate that a little bit? So we were able to get there. And so I didn't bring my SDC numbers. Oh, wait a minute, maybe I did. I meant to, I didn't though. I'm trying to remember, for transportation SDCs, it's just over $10,000 to build a new home for the transportation element. So that $10,000 covers really any new capacity. That's their stake at participation in any projects that include additional lanes, additional sidewalks, all those kinds of things. All those things that are listed in our transportation funded project list in our TSP, that money goes towards. The TAC, Transportation Advisory Committee, is talking about safe routes to school, 20-mile-per-hour speed zones in Oregon City. Kenema is probably one of the first places that we'll be looking to implement that, but we're trying to go through a process, and we have to get the city commission buy-in on that, and I'm not sure that the city commission's on board with that, and I get that. So we just want to gather the data and be able to give them a good update on what that would entail. And then the Trillium Park Drive landslide, just in case you're wondering, for those of you, and I guess that's part of McLaughlin neighborhood too, James, is the Trillium Park Drive landslide is in your neighborhood. It's kind of behind the hospital there. And, you know, we're still monitoring that. We know that there's still a deep set slide. It's still moving a little bit. So we're trying to keep the sewer line in service through there because it's right in the slide area there. But we're not going to be opening that roadway up anytime soon. We're just going to kind of continue to see what happens there and see if we can come up with a mitigation plan. So we're actually going to hire a consultant to help us through that discussion to come up with some alternatives and some of the costs associated with that. But that's where that's at. And that's it.
John, do you have any information? We got notice today from the county that there's going to be some road work out on Ferguson and,
Maple Lane.
yeah.
Yeah, they've got,
Do you know if that's going to be like chip seal work or grind down, and do you have any idea?
I don't know. I should know. I can get back to you with that. How do you want me to get back to you?
If you would
with that?
email me, that would be great. I posted it on OC Chit Chat, just forwarding it to everybody, and there's some questions that have popped up on there.
They say paving, but paving it can generally mean a variety of things. So I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I'll find out.
The sign's got like a 3-month time period on it, so it must be pretty hefty, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, that sounds more hefty than a chip seal, but I'll get you information.
Any questions, other questions for John? Linda?
Question on sewers. When you're going through and adding and redoing your sewer lines, the people that live along the properties who may be on what I call party lines or septic, how do you get them tied into sewer at that point? When you're going through and you'll know, maybe on 15th and older neighborhoods, there might be people who would be on a party line. Do they have to untangle that and get their own lines? Or if they would be on a septic tank, do they have to tie into the city at that point? How do you do that?
Well, it depends. But so the septic tank problem, the city doesn't allow new septics or septic system repairs of sewers within 300 feet. Okay, so if there's a septic system problem and they need to get a permit to do it, they can't. They have to connect. If we're doing a sewer rehab in that area, typically, so if we're going through an area that's got an old sewer line and for whatever reason they have never connected to it, our position would be to extend the sewer to their property, inform them of that, but not necessarily force them off their septic system at that time. The party line one is, our preference would be to have a service line for every property, and we would more than likely stub more than one service line. We haven't done a lot of sewer rehab, to be honest with you, in a lot of years, but my take on that is we stub out the services to all, if there's 3 properties connected to one lateral, we stub out 3 laterals, we connect the one up, and again, notify them of that. But the idea of forcing, that's a policy decision that the city commission hasn't dealt with, kind of like a lot of these other policy decisions that I think we're gonna have to address when we start doing some real infiltration and inflow reduction programs. So when we go into these neighborhoods that have a lot more stormwater connected to their sanitary than they should, because they got the roof drains connected, they got leaky laterals. Well, in that case, we kind of do need the city commission's direction on, how aggressive do we want to be with that? Should that be something that existing rates pay for? Should that be something that we notify the property owner and tell them, you got to deal with that when the house sells, or you got to deal with it within the next 3 years. We haven't made that decision yet. But, I mean, if we're going to go through a neighborhood like that, and we know there's a party line, my recommendation to my staff is going to be, let's stub out services for them. Okay?
Question. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions for John? All right, thank you. That was a really great 15 minutes,
Sorry.
but very well worth it. Very well worth it.
This is a problem only letting him come quarterly.
I know. See, if you were here every month, we didn't uninvite you, just letting you know.
Thanks, John.
Next up is public comments. If there is any public comment from anyone in the audience, you'd fill out a form, and seeing none. Next up is staff liaison update on questions from the last meeting. Do we need to go over?
I'll just quickly,
Okay.
I had promised the CIC that I would work with Kristen Brown on making the memo that we read about roles and responsibilities more reader-friendly, still on our to-do list, so I'll still work on that. Secondly, the work session for the grievance chapter is right now scheduled for July 10th. We'll talk about it at the later on the agenda tonight. If, I'm going to be sending an email out to neighbor associations to ask their secretaries if they're having any issues with creating their own postcards, now that the burden is going on in the neighborhood. And Karen Morey has offered, thank you, Karen, to help anybody. So I'll send that email out. If I hear from people, I'll direct them to Karen to make sure that all neighborhoods feel comfortable and have a program they're comfortable with. And the idea is that they just send it directly to Buell's and CC Kelsey McNall, our permit tech at Community Development, who will review the contents, make sure there's no endorsement of political issues, and then they can move forward with the printing. And that's it.
Okay. For general business, we need to add an item 5D, and that is to deal with our grievance committee. So do we need to vote on that, or
How do you
just?
No, we don't?
I don't think so. We've done it in the past.
Okay.
So that'll be 5D. 5A, prioritizing the work plan goal 3, develop resources to help maintain active neighborhood associations and help reactivate inactive or underperforming neighborhood associations, and share resources and tools that can help maintain active neighborhoods. Did you have?
Yeah, attached, this was an item, excuse me, speaking of, this was an item that was identified in the prioritized work plan that the CIC wanted to reopen the public involvement plan and start kind of seeing what tools that the CIC can forward on to the neighbor associations to try to encourage, larger turnout and help each other, bring more diversity to their neighborhood association. Because the grievance process actually was quicker than we thought, this goal item is more for the July and August meeting, but I talked to Chair Wilhite and kind of bringing it up tonight to get us prepped for the July and August meeting. And I attached the public involvement plan, and I guess maybe we can have a quick conversation tonight about what are some things you can ask your neighborhood association in the intervening month or months, and bring kind of back what's worked well, what's not working, what you want help on, and trying to get feedback from the neighborhood association on what you feel your strengths and weaknesses are. And I can turn it over to Amy if there's other things you want to talk about tonight. I think, how do we get prepped tonight and kind of give homework for us to give back to our neighbor association, so when we get to July and August, we can really have a good conversation and kind of have, we can create our own work plan within this goal.
And I would suggest, if possible, you look at the public involvement plan. If you're having a steering committee meeting in between now and our July or August meeting, that'd be a great thing to do, to ask them to, I think those of us that are here, we actually, something's working, because we have 3 neighborhoods that are currently not sending people here, so it would be great if we could work together to get some change there. I did reach out to Bill McConnell, who is the South End chair. He had a job change, and so things are really hard for him. He's not usually able to come to these meetings. My dad had to resign as his vice chair and also the CIC liaison for South End after his stroke, so Bill's feeling a little lonely and a little overwhelmed, so I'm not sure, especially now that he's also hosting Tower Vista, we'll need to reach out a little bit more and see if that's even going to be able to continue. Does he need more help? So maybe something to talk about in your neighborhood meetings too, if we need to have them be helped some more.
And I can,
Brian, I have not heard anything from Two Rivers, so
yeah.
I don't know if they're active or not.
And I can send some questions via email to, discussion points you can just bring to your next steering committee meeting to see if that's helpful. I like giving homework.
I'm gonna say, from Rivercrest's perspective, we're very active right now. You just need a neighborhood problem.
Yeah.
Don't want those.
We don't want a problem. Need to keep them active when there's not a problem.
Try a lawsuit.
Oh, thank you. All right, anything else on that?
No, so just,
Anybody have anything they want to say about that? Mike, you want to say something?
Well, I was, but I was going to, but I changed my mind.
Oh. Okay.
Self-editing.
5B, volunteer opportunities. I received an email yesterday about the safety fair. That's September 15th. That's the one at Danielson's Hilltop. Last year we didn't go. We talked about if we really wanted to go because it draws a lot of, a different crowd. A lot of people come from outside the city. And we, in the past, haven't had as good of a response there. So that's something we need to ask. We need to find out who's willing to help at National Night Out. Do we still want to have the booth there? And the safety fair. So I turn it over to thoughts and comments on those.
I think the National Night Out was really good. We got a lot of people stop by, so I don't see any reason not to do that one. Safety fair, I think, I have no real experience with that one.
Has anybody besides me helped at the safety fair? You know, Dennison.
What's the
What
date?
was your thought?
It was a very busy fair, and a lot of other things was going on in the safety fair, but I didn't feel they were coming to our booth, or we had a lot to contribute. But on the National Night Out, that's all about us.
Yeah,
That's,
I would agree.
that's okay.
Okay.
National Night Out is more of a priority for the neighborhood.
What's the date?
The National Night Out, do you have it? It's the first, usually it's the first
First Tuesday in
Tuesday
August.
of the month.
Tuesday of August.
So 7th? That's the
I
7th,
think it's the 7th, yeah.
because it comes in on a Wednesday.
Sorry, I had the safety fair figured out. I didn't have,
Okay,
First
just a
Tuesday
second.
of August.
Oh, wrong calendar.
so do we have volunteers here that would be willing to do this National Night Out?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I wish I
Roy.
could, but I'm
Karen,
What
not gonna
night
be in the
is it?
country.
Do we know?
August 7th, didn't say, someone say August 7th?
Monday? First Monday,
Tuesday.
right?
No, first Tuesday.
First Tuesday,
August
so
7th.
August 7th.
Yeah, it's August.
That would
First
be,
Tuesday.
wouldn't it be the first one? If it was this, well, I don't know, my math ain't
No,
good.
the first is a Wednesday.
Okay. So usually what it involves is having someone there. We can reach out if we want to see if the Transportation Advisory Committee or Public Works wants to join us again. It's kind of nice when they do because they set up for us
They
and
have the easy up, yeah.
make it easy on us. If that's something we want to do. But usually we just need people there. I don't remember how long that lasts. Do we need shifts?
We
been a
did
couple years since I've been able to go.
We did 2 shifts last year. So it's like officially starts at 5:30. We did set up about 4:30. And then a mid-break.
Okay.
And I can help with setup
5:30
again.
to 8:30 are the advertised hours.
Okay. Christina, could you reach out to Public Works and see
Sure.
if they want to join us?
Yeah.
And then have a sign-up sheet for our July meeting? We can
Yeah.
actually,
So who's volunteered today? I'll already pre.
Roy and Karen.
Roy and Karen, okay. I will
do you want to be there and Vern?
National Night Out?
Yeah.
I'll volunteer.
okay.
Yeah, for myself, it would be easier to do the later shift because of work. I may not make it
Okay.
at 5:30.
Okay.
The cooler shift.
So if we go 5:30 to 7 and then 7 to 8:30?
You need to be there a little earlier
Yeah,
to
you need
set
to-
up.
Yeah, be set
But I can be there to meet Public Works whenever they're ready
Okay.
to set up.
So if you'll be in charge of the setup, you'll be the header. person.
Okay.
And Roy, if you'll be the header to make sure it gets taken down, okay, then we'll put, Vern, which one works best for you?
Flex.
Okay. I'll look, but I think I can help too, and then that would make two.
It's nice to have two people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I can pre-populate the sign and then we can
All
still
right.
add other lines for people in the next meeting.
Okay.
The setup, the registration form says setup is 3:30 to 5.
Yep, I just need to know when to meet Public Works.
Okay. All right, 5C,
So we decided not to do the safety fair?
right.
Okay.
Do we need a vote on that? Do we have that in any official blah, blah, blah? Okay.
Nope, nothing official.
No official blah, blah, blah.
Nope.
All right, 5C, goal 4, reviewing the grievance process code and submission requirements update.
Yeah, as you recall, last month, the CIC voted to request to the city commission to remove the grievance section from the Oregon City Municipal Code. The work session is scheduled for July 10th, where kind of staff will make a presentation, allow the city commission to ask questions. There's no public comment, but we want to see who from the CIC wants to come. Maybe one or two people want to speak on behalf of the CIC. So I think tonight probably need a vote, whomever is going to speak on behalf of the CIC. Because I'm sure the city commission would want to hear kind of your background on why this was chosen. But for the most part, it's going to be a little presentation, probably a small, small CIC comment, and then kind of really, it's on the city commissions. And
What night of the week is that?
It is a Tuesday.
Okay, I believe I'll be able to go.
Since Mike's been part of one of the grievance committees, I would nominate Mike as one of the speakers.
Okay.
I would also
that?
second that since he kind of spearheaded everything in our little subcommittee we had.
Okay, I think it would be good if we're both there.
So I think just to make sure,
Except you haven't been grieved.
maybe there can be just a quick vote to make sure that you're
still young.
being officially sent on
Okay.
behalf of the
So
CIC.
we just need, do you want to make that an official recommendation, Karen, seconded by Roy?
That was a
So
motion,
That was a
and Roy
motion?
seconded.
And you seconded?
Seconded, yeah.
That Mike and I go as we
Yes.
need to have both people said, so that we can
I-
officially represent.
I
Or you
would
don't want me to go?
suggest Mike be the speaker due to the history of the grievance process
I
with
don't have a
this
problem
group.
with that.
I'd love to have you present, but I think Mike should be the
Absolutely.
voice.
Don't have a problem with that at all.
Do you want me to do a voice
So-
vote or a call?
Yeah, we have to do a roll call, so Dennis, you just. don't you
Here, I
got-
stole your,
Steal mine. Okay. Kanema. We're voting, do I have to,
Who's the main? You are?
excuse me?
Who's the primary vote?
Myself.
Oh, that'd be you?
Yes. Going forward. Gaffney Lane,
Yes.
Hillendale,
Yes.
Tower Vista, no,
Yes.
yes. McLaughlin,
Yes.
Rivercrest,
Yes.
Caulfield,
Yes.
Berkeley Hills,
Yes.
unanimous.
all right.
Okay. All right, and then our added in 5D for a grievance committee, again, tonight, there were 5 people that were chosen in April. We didn't have enough for a quorum last meeting, and there's not enough for a quorum tonight. Looking at the members, and Christina sent out a reminder, and from we have 2 people here tonight. The other 3 did not respond to the emails, nor are they here. So we have a concern that we're not going to ever get enough for a quorum to hold a meeting. So the thought is proposed that we disband and choose 5 more people. So thoughts, comments, we would need a motion. Right?
During it was last month where the committee was chosen. I do know Karen Moore requested recusal. And so that would be,
And so did
and
Janice.
Janice, so that would have to happen again.
Okay, I can't make a motion as a chair. Thoughts, comments, motion?
I'll move that we, what's the right word? Cancel the previous random drawing of the 5 names and redraw 5 names from the people who are present this evening.
Does I hear a second?
Yes.
Dennis? Comments, discussion?
What's the,
Vern?
is the last 2 words you said of 5 people drawing of the people present?
Present here tonight.
Okay.
Janice, did you have a concern?
I have to recuse myself. Yeah, we're both out of the drawing.
I had one question. Would this bring up any kind of procedural question on behalf of the people filing the grievance if it's not done according to, I guess, all the rules or whatever?
Well, that's a good question. The question is, the only other alternative that we see is to say we're carrying it over for another month and we look at and do this again next month.
Okay, so we just tell them,
But without hearing from them, we can't say that they'll even be here. And since
Right.
since they haven't met or done anything, it seems like this would be a better step, so at least get something happening. That's our hope.
And the code is a little vague about, it doesn't say from all the members, from only those present. So I think at the last meeting, we took the more conservative approach and chose members from the whole membership. But I think what I'm hearing is rather than the option of continuing, looking at actually getting a chance to form a committee, this is the viable second option.
And the last time that we did hold a grievance, we did do it from the members present. If those are here, remember, we had X's or on the papers, so
okay.
we did, we have said that before. I do have a question if I need to recuse myself, because some additional emails were sent. I don't know if they're on the record, and I don't know if they involve, they just listed that I was present at the night of one of, I don't even know if that's part of the grievance.
So right now, the grievance is against the Berkeley Hills Neighborhood Association and Betty Mum and Dan Holliday and the CIC. And so the last month, the CIC made the decision not to recuse them, the whole body, and move forward. So that right now is the official request, the official grievance is against those parties.
Okay. So that would be up to,
They have not changed their request for
Okay.
adding new
Okay.
aggrieved people.
all right, so let's take a vote. Dennis?
A vote. Just not for alternative people? I mean, am I asking Linda to, okay, fine. Kanema, yes. Am I voting yes? Yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say.
You want to,
I thought he was moving on real quick. Last time he moved to Gaffney.
things are going too quick for me, I guess. Gaffney Lane.
Yes.
Hillendale,
Yes.
Tower Vista,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Rivercrest,
Yes.
Caulfield,
Yes.
Berkeley Hills,
Yes.
unanimous.
Okay.
All right, so there are 7 members who are not recused. There are 5 members. If you have a star,
It's narrowing down.
Percentage of
That's one gets picked and they're
if
out.
you're one of the 2 slips that don't have a star, you're not on the committee.
Say that again, sorry.
If you have a star, you're on the committee. If you're one of the 2 slips that do not have a star, you are not on the committee.
I don't know how we can avoid it.
Last one off the item.
You get a second chance.
Immunity. And we'd have the immunity idol?
Is that just one?
Does it,
Oh, he's hiding it.
You can peek, James.
He doesn't want to show.
I can't see it. Okay.
Oh, everybody's hiding it?
Everybody's saying.
I know. We'll do the reveal all at
It'll
once.
look like Las Vegas, so I'll be peeking at our whole card here.
No facial tells.
I
Start bidding at $20.
So what are the odds?
Can I erase that really quick?
Well, you gave that one away.
I know.
Okay, get whatever it is.
Okay, group reveal.
All right, reveal.
Oh, Roy got
Look at
lucky.
Roy.
Vern,
Roy scored.
James.
Oh, nice.
You got out of it?
draw.
So Vern, are you hiding
This
a star?
redrawing was a great idea.
There you go.
There's an X.
Okay, so we have
Is that
Roy, that means you're on it. Roy and Vern.
No, Roy's not.
Oh, no, you and James didn't. Okay,
Yes.
sorry. So Vern and Linda and Mike and Amy and Dennis.
You scored.
Okay,
Second time around.
so we will meet directly after this.
I might keep this,
Meeting.
might be my lucky piece.
I know.
I never win in.
Round table.
And this is what I
This
win.
month, I'm gonna start with Tony. The last couple times we've started over here, so welcome to the meeting, Tony.
We talked a little bit about a lot of the work that's going on 205, so the I-205 widening and seismic improvements. So there's an open house scheduled for Tuesday, June 5th, so tomorrow, over at West Lynn from 5 to 7 at the Adult Community Center at 1180 Rosemont Road. Then there's also one on Wednesday, 6/6, so the next day, so Wednesday of this week at the Tumwater Room at the Museum of the Oregon Territory, just down here at 211 Tumwater Street. That's from 5 to 7 also, so that open house will be going on. John talked about the Rockfall Improvement Project. They're out there putting up some of the detour signs and information signage today. Expect that to start next week. The Ermitinger House grand opening is scheduled for Saturday, July 7th from 12 to 4 p.m. So you can come out and, you have that flyers on your desk, on your dais there. And then just an update on the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. So Mr. Heideggerkin had owed some outstanding utility bills to the city, back taxes to Clackamas County, and he owed some funds to Metro that were required as part of the easement. So he has come square on the utilities, a majority of the county taxes, and then the partners group, which are the elected officials from the 4 public agencies, did direct staff to go ahead and move ahead with submitting one of the first permits we need is an Army Corps of Engineers permit for the work that we'll be doing along the riverfront. So we did submit that permit about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Probably, 8 to 12 month process, I would imagine. And so for the time being, it'll probably be pretty quiet as we're just kind of doing things behind the scenes, working with what we can do with some of the brownfields work that we have, looking at some of the environmental issues on the site. So excited to get that moving, keep that project on track. That's all that I have for tonight.
All right. Well,
Thank you, Christina.
I have a lot of flyers too. So DPave, can you dig it? Is coming. La Tourette's Army is sponsoring it. They received a grant this last year, and they're starting their DPave project. And it's this Saturday, June 9th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Latterett Park. They're going to be taking up asphalt. So if you want to help or just cheerlead them as you drive down, it's happening this weekend on Saturday, June 9th, so please pass it around. Oregon City is helping to celebrate 175th anniversary of the Oregon Trail. It's happening this summer. Let's see, it's on, our main event is Friday, June 22nd and Saturday, June 23rd. And I know there's some other events happening this summer as well. If you want to keep involved, the best way I've heard is to follow them on Facebook. So their information's on the bottom. You can kind of see what, there's going to be concerts. The Optimist Club is doing a dinner. So there's lots of different activities, but this is more of a keep an eye on it as we move forward. Local author fairs coming to our library. I heard we may have an author in this room who may be here.
I actually didn't end up in the biographies, but I will be there
All
with the table.
So I heard there's a PALS gift certificate raffle, and the authors will be there for book purchasing and signing of their books. And they're all different kinds of authors: children's books authors, young adult,
Fiction,
fiction, history, crime, mystery. So come to the library. Let's see. We also have we have a speaker, Dr. Scott Burns. If you know him, he is a geologist who is an emeritus professor at PSU. He'll be speaking to our planning commission on June 11th at 6:15 here. And you're more than welcome to come and sit in the audience to learn about geological hazards and how we can protect our property, both on a private level and a public level. And it'll also be available to watch on streaming video after, because it's a planning commission work session. And there'll be a future planning commission work session centered around transportation with our Transportation Advisory Committee and the planning commission. And we will be informally inviting CSC members if they want to sit and watch as well. And John Replinger, our transportation consultant, will kind of talk about kind of the whole breadth of transportation analysis and transportation engineering in Oregon City. And if anybody's interested in like, what does traffic impact analysis do? How do we look at it? What are the legal ramifications? He'll talk about that. For my to-do list, I will send John's PowerPoint to this group. There was a comment about the TriMet's listening session. I'll find that website link. If there's anything else, so the two things I heard out of John's presentation, so if there's anything else, I can write it down.
Not for those, but the National Night Out.
Oh, I can write, National Night Out.
Finding out if Public Works wants to join with us.
And then I'll also put together the sign-in sheet, and I'll pre-populate with who I have.
And then we need to actually sign up for that. So is that something that Kelsey can, or you can do?
Okay. Yes, we will help. We will do that.
Okay.
And I'll also send some pre-populated questions about what things you can ask your neighborhood association at your next meeting before we meet again. Okay,
You done?
I'm done.
All right, James.
So, though, I mean, the only she busted my bubble. The thing I want to talk about was Ladder Rats Park and ripping up all the paving on the top half. It's pretty neat that, I mean, some youth inspired that to happen. I mean, like, we're talking some 10-year-old girls got that ball rolling. So if you guys can come out, yeah, exactly. If you guys can come out and support and help de-pave the top part of the park where the basketball courts are now, and they're going to be installing some new basketball courts where the tennis courts are and pulling off some of the chain link tennis court fence. It's going to be awesome. If you guys come support us, that'd be great. Thank you.
Great. Dennis?
Kanima, our next meeting is the 21st of June, and Linda's going to help me out where I miss. There's a lot of discussion on organizing our annual picnic, and we're trying to get some, we have had some good ideas in the past, and we have a few people who are on board with coming up with new ideas to, get more people in our neighborhood to come out. It needs to be organized, and I think much of our June 21st meeting will be trying to corral somebody into taking that on and helping get that done. I can't think of, we're also kind of concerned, we want to have an outreach to Metro. We want them to come and talk to us about the Greenway path and how it impacts our neighborhood and what has been the resolve, if anything's changed since the last presentation. And I think we're sort of working for getting somebody to come and, meet with us and talk about, its position at this point.
Is this the McLaughlin-Kenema Trail, or?
Yes.
Okay. that
Well,
would
I
be
call
with
it the
city.
Greenway path, but
Okay, that would be
maybe-
the city.
Yeah, okay, that's the city, okay. Well, this is the McLaughlin-Kenema path. Did I leave something off, that I shouldn't be mentioning?
No,
Good,
did
okay,
an excellent job.
that's it.
Thanks. The Gaffney Lane, we met in May, and we had Commissioner Shaw came and kind of gave an update of things that have been happening in the city, and John Lewis did his presentation. And then we had quite the lovely, lively presentation from one of the workers from Khalifa. They had built in our neighborhood, and we asked them to come share with us the process that they had to go through to become a medical or a marijuana dispensary, and it was quite enlightening and entertaining. Not at all what we were expecting, but it was quite lively.
Did they bring brownies?
No, we didn't have any brownies, sorry.
So it was a high.
It was definitely a high point. We will have our steering committee meeting next Thursday, June 14th.
Okay.
That one.
Caulfield, we had our general meeting last week, and we heard two proposals. One, a very small land use issue, basically taking where there's one existing home on a large lot that's on a corner lot, and they're basically going to put one house alongside it on one street and one house alongside it on the other street, and it really kind of, it's nice because it kind of finishes off the neighborhood. It'll make a connection to sidewalk. This is on the corner of Holly Lane and, no, Maple Lane, and I can't remember the name of the other street. But anyway, it basically completes the sidewalk and kind of completes the subdivision. It kind of sort of fills in the gap. So our group voted to support that. We also heard from Wes Rogers, the operations manager of the school district, about the school district's bond measure plans, which are not finalized yet. I think they're leaning toward having something on the November ballot, but that they have not, the school board has not yet made a final decision. They're not up against their deadline yet to make that decision. But it's a pretty substantial bond that they're talking about for 2 new middle schools and repurposing the 2 middle school building, or repurposing one and tearing one down, I think. And also safety and security improvements at every school. That's what they're looking at.
Okay, Rivercrest rerun. Our next meeting's Thursday, June 21st. And we'll have the Chief Band and John Lewis and Phil Lewis updating us on what's being done at Creedon Promenade. And just a little humor off of something that John said. We had a presentation at PrAC on the widening of the Abernathy Bridge. The intention is to widen the uprights, and they're actually apparently planning to split the freeway, move one lane out and build a new lane. In order to do that, the upright on this side will protrude out over John Storm Park 30 feet above the ground. But even though it's 30 feet above the ground, we need a vote because it's a charter park and it's obtruding onto park property. So if anyone's 30 feet high and is tall and is concerned about this, it's going to be an odd and interesting issue to deal with. But that's the obtrusion onto John Storm Park.
Right, Janice? All right, Berkeley Hills, we had a really good meeting last month.
Yay.
Things went really well. Walt came and talked to us about planning, and that went really, really well. We had some people in talking about building a building on Malala Avenue, and, you know, like they have to do their presentation. And we will have a steering committee meeting on the 12th. So what's going on with us? Thank you.
Linda?
Pass.
Vern?
I'll pass.
Pass it to Roy. Roy?
Okay, since the last CIC meeting, we have not had a neighborhood meeting because just the way the calendar worked out. Our actual steering meeting is tomorrow night. We will have our next general meeting on July 10th at Hillendale Park. It's when we have our little kind of picnic meeting. We get usually much better attendance. John Lewis is scheduled to give this presentation, probably the one we just saw tonight there. And we're going to have a presentation by a person representing a county building in our area. And I forgot to print out the email, so I can't remember exactly where it's at, but it's something to do with the county.
Is it the extension
The
office?
extension building?
The extension, yeah.
It's
Okay,
on,
yeah.
Okay. And then the only other thing would be, I am definitely interested in getting some assistance on the mailers. I had sent an email to Buell's requesting if there was any other format than publisher that could be used, but it came back as undeliverable, so I don't know if I typed it in wrong or something else, so. But at our meeting tomorrow night, I'll check with Will and Joyce. They may actually have something like that on their computer. If not, I'll need to find some kind of alternative to do our cards.
Yeah, and Roy, if you don't, just send it to me and I'll work with you on what you do have available.
Okay.
I've got different varieties of software we can work with. And I have Buell's correct address because I just sent them something to print.
Okay. Anything else for,
Good of the word.
all right, with that, we are adjourned. Remember to stay for the grievance committee.
So I was gonna say, Janice,